Bitcoin network's mining difficulty rises to all-time high, making block discovery more challenging. Bitcoin's mining difficulty printed a record increase on January 15, 2023, rising 10.26% to 37.73 trillion at block height 772,128. The network's difficulty is now at an all-time high. The difficulty was approximately 34.09 trillion last week, and it reached an all-time high, of 37.73 trillion on Sunday, making it exceptionally difficult to find a BTC block. Prior to the January 15, 2023, difficulty increase, the highest difficulty rating on the Bitcoin blockchain was 36.76 trillion on November 6, 2022. The new year began with a bang for Bitcoin as the network's hash rate reached an all
Bitcoin when it was under $1,000. CNBC.com tech reporting Mackenzie Sigalos is here with more. She's got an update on the family and how they've been doing since traveling the globe. Mackenzie.
Hey, Kelly. Yes, they have been. I first met Didi Taihutu, his wife, and 3 daughters 4 years ago when they had just sold their house, their business, their shoes in order to make this massive bet on Bitcoin. And remember, back then, the cryptocurrency didn't have the same level of mainstream adoption and institutional backing that it does now. And even when the crypto winter hit in 2018, wiping out a good portion of their life savings, they doubled down, buying even more Bitcoin and diversifying into other cryptocurrencies. Now, we don't know exactly how much they've put in, but at least a couple $100,000 at the start, and it's appreciated more than 5,000% since then. So it's certainly enough to travel the world, and that is definitely what they've been doing for the past 4 years. They've lived in or visited 40 different countries since I first met them.
I guess my questions are sort of how are they monetizing this? There's a lot of yield plays you can do with Bitcoin, but people don't always trust all of these different platforms, and they have, I presume they don't want to sell it, all of it, but they can kind of sell as they go. And then the security issue. So for the Bitcoin that they do have, you know, the storage, the access, again, going back to this platform and the trustworthiness issue, it must be a lot to deal with.
Yeah, no, on your first point, they're big believers in spending the Bitcoin and just, you know, making sure that they're a part of this Bitcoin economy and really using it for that cryptocurrency use case. So for them, it's not as much of a profit play. And in terms of the storage side of it, the family is a big believer in cutting out any sort of middleman. What they've done is they've taken 74% of their crypto portfolio, specifically their Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Litecoin, and they've put it into cold storage. And what that means is that they've put their crypto on these thumb drive sized hardware wallets that aren't connected to the internet. And they've hidden them on 4 different continents in 6 different places as a way to safeguard their virtual coins from hackers.
And even though this sounds like the stuff of a movie, Mackenzie, a lot of people who want to own their keys to their coins, so to speak, have to do the same kind of thing, right? I mean, it's not that far-fetched to say that you need to store that password or that, you know, in different places, because if it's just sitting there in your house and someone grabs it, they could theoretically get your Bitcoin.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why, you know, companies like Square and Jack Dorsey are working to create their own hardware wallet options that are more accessible, because I think a lot of people are afraid to custody their own Bitcoin because that's a huge responsibility.
All right. So speaking of Bitcoin, Mackenzie, while you're here, we also have this other issue going on with just what exactly the mining profitability share is becoming. Talk through the early stages of what we're learning about how this change is affecting Bitcoin mining right now.
So about every 2 weeks, like clockwork, Bitcoin resets how tough it is for miners to mine. And early this morning, the Bitcoin code automatically made it about 7.3% more difficult to do the job of mining. And the reason that this happened is that some of the miners that used to be in China before the crypto crackdown are now finding new homes elsewhere. Remember, we lost more than half of all miners this spring, which meant that for a few months, it was a lot less competitive and more profitable for everyone who was still plugged into the network. But unsurprisingly, miners are coming back online and things are getting more competitive and less lucrative.
Yeah, and a lot of
to an all-time high, putting additional pressure on miners. It now requires 35.6 trillion hashes to mine 1 Bitcoin. The difficulty gauge rose almost 14% from the last adjustment roughly 2 weeks ago, the largest such move since May of 2021. And legendary hedge fund manager Paul Tudor Jones still has a minor allocation to Bitcoin, telling CNBC he continues to believe Bitcoin will have value, but that cash is the place to be as long as the Fed can be counted on to follow through on its pledge to bring inflation back to the 2% target. A slight pivot from PTJ's major BTC bullishness last year, when the hedge fund giant said he wanted 5% of his multi-billion-dollar portfolio allocated to Bitcoin. And finally, Iranian security forces arrested Bitcoin advocate Zayed Seider, who promoted privacy-focused ways to use Bitcoin for personal transactions amid widespread anti-government protests. A friend of Seider telling CoinDesk the Iranian blockchain educator was arrested in Tehran on September 19th and has not been released.